You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, to begin our conversation on the utilization of 13% derivation arrears, let's listen to this background report compiled by our correspondent, Mohammed Garba Natala.
The 13% derivation is a provision enshrined in Section 162, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, meant for the oil-producing states. The benefiting states are Delta, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Rivers, Edo, Ondo, Imo, and Abia. The derivation fund is for exclusive use of oil and gas producing communities as compensation for loss of fishing rights and productive farmlands as a result of oil and gas exploration and production activities. In addition, it is meant to assist in addressing environmental pollution and degradation, provide basic amenities such as health care facilities, potable water, roads, and economic empowerment of the people in the host communities. Reports show that in the last few years, federal government has paid trillions of naira to the oil-producing states from their federation account under the derivation formula. The benefiting states have set up development commissions with a view to execute developmental projects that will impact positively in the host communities. But many of the communities in the Niger Delta region have not been feeling the impact of the commissions to commiserate to the amount received as derivation funds. Also, data from the National Bureau of Statistics revealed that intervention activities and physical developments in the oil-producing communities do not reflect the derivation fund received by their states. The recent comments from the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike on the utilization of the derivation fund generated divergent views by Nigerians, especially the Niger Delta people. What is the oil-producing states doing with the derivation fund accruing to their states? What level of consultation do they undertake in executing projects in the oil-producing communities? And what level of transparency and accountability is put in place to ensure judicious utilization of the funds? These are some of the issues guests shall be talking about shortly.
Well, thank you, Natala, for the background report. And joining us now in the studio to discuss the topic is Senator Etta Enang, immediate past Senior Special Assistant to the President on Niger Delta Affairs. Thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
And from our Benin studio, we have Leo Atabu, Deputy Executive Director, African Network for Environmental and Economic Justice. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning and welcome to the program. Thank you. Good morning and good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, it's good to have you.
All right. It looks like there's some delay there in the audio carrier. Just before we pop our first set of questions to our two guests, just to remind our viewers once again, in addition to the background report by our correspondent Natala, that the 13% derivation, of course, is enshrined in the Constitution. That is the minimum derivation for natural resources. And of course, 13% was arrived at as part of the conclusions of the 1994-95 Constitutional Conference organized during the regime of the late General Sani Abacha. So it emerged from that and it was then grafted into the 1999 Constitution. It turns out that during the sharing of monies accruing to the Federation account, 13% is reserved for derivation, as we have indicated, and particularly now for oil. As oil is the lead natural resource. It could be any other natural resource, but oil is the lead resource, and the number of states that benefit from it have been indicated. But not all the monies due were paid fully from 1999. So arrears accumulated, and it was only recently that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari started paying the arrears that had accumulated since 1999. And the major prompt for our conversation this morning is the revelation, of course, by Governor Nyesom Wike. Otherwise, until then, it seemed not to have been in the public space that the oil-producing states in the Federation that are beneficiaries of 30% derivation had been receiving the arrears. And so Nyesom Wike, Governor of Rivers State, did say that this is the situation. And since then, it's been one counter narrative after the other. Happily, we have Senator Ita Enang with us here in the studios, former senior special assistant to the president of Nigeria Data Affairs, of course, distinguished senator, member of the House of Representatives. Senator, what are we dealing with here?
Well, we're dealing with the goodwill of President Muhammadu Buhari and the transparency of President Muhammadu Buhari, because the sums that are due, which has been computed and released to the states, were arrears that were owed from 2004 to 2020. And the other, that is from the derivation under calculation. And there were also deductions from by NNPC, which upon deduction, the money's 13% element was not deducted. And so this were computed. And there was the other element, the third element, called the exchange rate differential. You know, there are three tranches or three elements. Now, this was since, the other one was since 1999, the other one was since 2004. And it was calculated in arrears. A lot of consultants and institutions of government were involved. And when they were calculated, the sum was very huge. And the Ministry of Finance, Debt Management Office, the Accountant General of the Federation, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, and other agencies of government decided, okay, we can't pay, the federal government can repay this monies all at once to the oil-producing states for the oil-producing communities. It now therefore said, look, we will pay these monies in installments. And then it decided that some of them were sectioned into 12 installments and others into more or less. But I think the 13%, the one that is due on the exchange rate differentials, were paid in one tranche to the state, to the government of the states for the oil-producing communities. I keep emphasizing this. So, you know, these are monies that were due from the previous governments, but President Muhammadu Buhari said, look, they are entitled and it has to be paid, but the federal government cannot pay at once. It decided to pay them in installments. And this is the installments that has been paid now. And it's been, some of this has been paid since 2021, some 2022. And there are some other installments are due in advance. And even those that were due in 2021, 2022, some of the state governments decided to auction the advanced monies due, to collect it earlier than when it was due. And that being so, they auctioned it in what they called, through debt instruments, and collected less. Some at 20%, some at 25% in less, and then just auctioned the money. You know, that's where we are now.
Well explained. I may actually want to know what could have led to the accumulation of the arrears in the first place. This is a constitutional matter, and we didn't have very serious financial difficulties within the period in question, between 2004 and 2020 you're talking about. I'm just concerned about what could have led to the accumulation of the arrears, but that could be a belated question. But the most important thing is that some monies have been released, and we're not talking about how are these monies utilized by the governments in question. How were they utilized? Because the revelation of Wike clearly indicates, because Wike has been identified as a governor that is synonymous with infrastructural development, here and there. You can't just deny him that. And someone asked him, how was he making the money? How does he get the money to do all of that? I mean, that could have led to him revealing that, look, I am utilizing my own 13% derivation properly and all of that. Now, let's bring in Leo here. What do you make of the current situation with respect to the 13% derivation?
Yeah, thank you. I think first we need to appreciate Governor Nyesom Wike for stirring the honestness, because if he didn't do that, by now this conversation perhaps will not have been holding at various levels. I think that for us as civil society, we believe that it is important to hold those that are in place of authority to account. Sometime in 2004, my organization, ANIJ, we decided to commission a research which we entitled Oil of Poverty in the Niger Delta. We tried to look at the utilization of 13% derivation to the oil-producing states. The research showed that only Ondo State had a legal institutional framework for the management of the 13%. They usually seed, they establish the OSOPADEC, and they allocate 40% of the 30% to OSOPADEC. And then we felt that this was a model that needed to be replicated around the Niger Delta. And so we decided to commence some kind of advocacy for other states in the region to follow the Ondo model. And so we had to even take lawmakers from these states to Ondo State to understudy the Ondo State model. And so for us, we felt that, yes, it wasn't clear how the 13% was being managed. But again, we had a point to even start from. And so Edo set up the EDSOPADEC, Delta State also set up the DESOPADEC. And with the establishment of these interventionist agencies, we expected that these resources that were flowing to the region should translate into improved living conditions of the people. That it will also contribute to eradication of poverty of the people. But the report, the research, indicated that much of that was not happening. Even though these agencies have been established over time, we believe that it has to translate into improved living conditions, improved environmental conditions of our people. And so, sometime last year, we commenced a project that is being supported by, we call it Enhancing Anti-Corruption and Inclusive Reforms in Nigeria. The whole aim was to take again another review of how the 13% oil revenue is being managed over the years by the government of the various states. And so this now has further reviewed how these resources have been managed by the governments. And so it is obvious that the resources yes, the institution, the states that establish the interventionist agencies, first, we need to appreciate them. We need to also commend them because it's a starting point. Now, having established these institutions, what are the issues? What are the challenges associated with interventionist institutions, the PADEX? First, we find a situation where some of these institutions are being politicized, or they are used for political patronage by the states. And by that I mean that these institutions are established. Some of them, even with the law, you have a situation where they have up to 15, 17 commissioners, which have the same status, the same paraphernalia of office that they enjoy with the other commissioners appointed by the governor of the state. So that in itself, constitutes a drain, so that much of the revenues that are accruing, of the percentages that have been allocated, are being spent on administrative costs, on salaries, for instance. And then again, you find a situation where some of these agencies were overstaffed. You have too many employees, within the system. And so you find that the original aim that we advocated for these institutions to be established, is being undermined. And again, if we also discovered that there are issues of transparency and accountability, there is not enough disclosure to the people. The governors will not tell the citizens what they are receiving and how they are spending it. And the institutions, the approach, the development approach that they adopt is not in sync with what is expected, for the development of the region. What do I mean by that? You have this top-down approach, that is the managers of the commissions. They believe that they know the problem and the solution. The people are not being carried along. There's less consultation. In fact, in terms of development priorities, the people's development priorities are not being factored into the development initiatives of some of the institutions. So these are some of the challenges that we identified. But again, how do we, have there been some progress? Yes, there's been some progress, because some of these institutions, they've been responsible for some road construction, some even police offices, police quarters, police posts. They have been constructed in some of the oil producing communities. But again, are these what is expected of the intervention agencies? It is not.
Leo Atapo, thank you very much there for your detailed explanation as to the various bodies set up to manage the 13% derivation receipts from the Federation account. We'll return to you presently, but let's come back to the studios. Senator Itainang. Senator Itainang, you listened to Leo Atapo. Now, it appears that the pre-existing structures, processes, and procedures are what the latest areas disclosed by Nyesom Wike, governor of Rivers State, just fed into. And therefore, the monies just seem to have made no impact whatsoever. Is this your reading of it?
Well, it's my reading of it, and let me say that many people have commended Governor Wike. Apologize for mixing up his name. The governor of Rivers State, but I'll be reserved in my commendation. I commend him, but I'm reserved in my commendation, because the money for the derivation funds is meant for the development of the oil producing communities. It is not meant for the development of the entire state. Let me commend some governments that like Ondo State and like Delta States, which have established the Oil Mineral Producing Area Development Commission. First, they have established this in full, that is as a dressing. Like Delta State, as advisor on Niger Delta, I had engaged with the mineral producing areas and the host communities, and we discovered that the Producing Area Development Commission were just dressing, were just conduit, like my brother has said, and were used as political instruments. But it is even better than states like Abia, Imo, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Bayelsa, Edo, and others, which have not established at all. Let us not accept that these monies are sent to the states as trustees, and in law, a trustee does not convert or use trust properties. Now, Wike has used it for the development of the urban areas and a few other areas, but I want to pray that a lot of it should go to the development of the oil producing communities, because this is why you have seen the tension in the area, insecurity, and unfortunately most of the indigenes of these oil producing areas have been reduced to security men for the oil producing companies. They have been reduced to a situation where they just become guards, pipeline guards, and tempted into bunkering and the illegal refining of petroleum product. This is what ought to have been prevented, Now, I want Governor Wike also, and all other governors, and I emphasize this, because I had said at the beginning of this program that this monies has been discounted in advance. Some monies were due to, some of these were sectioned or instrumentalized into 3 years, 5 years, depending on how much you were entitled. But these governors have taken these monies in advance, which is some that should have been due to governments in the succeeding administrations. But they have auctioned it. They have
you will explain that auction. I mean, it's just it's intriguing, Kirian, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing. This is the first time I'm hearing of. I know I read your statement.
Money.
Yeah, you are auctioning your credit in future. And by the way, let me pause you and then just throw this in as a correction. Edo State has its own oil producing development commission. Yeah. It was set up in the twilight of Governor Lucky Igbenedion's administration.
Yeah.
I recall that the secretary to the state government at the time, Pastor Osagi Ezeyamo, chaired the committee on the executive branch that collated all the issues and then, of course, did the drafting of the bill, then sent to the State House of Assembly. And just to also indicate that because a state also hopes to develop holistically, it then said, yes, a greater percentage will be devoted to the oil producing communities,
yes.
But at the same time, you would not neglect so that the other parts of the state would not be an eyesore. That's just one point I needed to make. But Kieran, as I said, Senator Ita Enang is telling us about auctioning the money that it sounds bizarre. How does it work?
Now, you can be entitled to money in 3 years or 5 years. Now, while that is not, when in waiting for that 3 years, you can decide to take the money in advance by discounting. Is the process I call discount. Yes. They call this discount in law.
Discount
and
some percentage of that amount.
Yes, discount the amount by, if it were 100 billion, you can say, give me at 70 or 75 billion. When the money is due, you take the 100 billion, making a profit of 25 or 30 billion when the money is due. This is the process I call auction, but it's a discount. It's discounting the sums. Now, Governor Wike and all the governors should also be able to say what percentage of the money they have collected thus far and what percentage, what part of it they have discounted, and at what rate, and when will it be due? This is part of what has not been. Now, I have particularized this money, these documents, and if you allow me, I will just give you details of about 3 or 4 states where they have, how much they have collected. Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Now, in a memo I made, I had compartmentalized it into 3, which is how the monies were made. The derivation component was not deducted for oil producing states. This was declared and resolved by Mr. President to refund the oil producing states as arrears due between 2004 and 2009, which stands and each state as hereunder, another tranche and another tranche. Then I will give for the Reserve state, it's a total of 23 billion they're entitled, but they have received one. I go to Akwa Ibom State. The Akwa Ibom State, for the first element, the sums they have received thus far is 128 billion 592 million 811,000.
Just approximate. Yeah.
Yes, approximate. Now that is on the first element. On the amount outstanding on this, which they are entitled to discount or in any other manner, is 77.3 billion. Now, on the second head, which is 13% derivation on deductions by NNPC, it is 15.051 billion they have received. The sum outstanding on this element from the NNPC element is 199.637 billion. That is the one that is due in advance. Then refund of 30% derivation on exchange rate differentials is just 2.4 billion. The total amount that Akwa Ibom is entitled is 423.116 billion. Now you go to Bayelsa State, they have received 92.25 the amount outstanding is 55.4 billion. Then on the refund or derivation on deductions by NNPC without derivation element is 11 billion, and the outstanding is 154 billion. The total of what they're entitled is 315.391 billion. That is when you take what they have received and what they're entitled thus far, you now have this thing. Now, Cross River State, after the judgment on Bakassi, the Cross River was delisted from some of the benefits. So they have only received 1.3 billion, and it's not any much. Then you go to Delta State. Delta has received 110.174 billion. The outstanding is 66 billion. The refund on NNPC is they have received only the 14.8. The outstanding is 197 billion, and the total of the entitlement is 390.529 billion. For Edo State, they have 11.2 billion received, 6.81 outstanding. Then the total fund they are due is 51.16 billion. For Imo State, the sum paid thus far is 5 billion. The sum outstanding is 3.3, and the total of what the other outstanding on the NNPC element is 39 billion. Then you go to River State. River State has received 109.6 billion. The outstanding money on the first head is 62 billion. Then refund of 13% derivation, they have received 12.816 billion. The outstanding sum is 169 billion. Now, the point I'm making here is there is the outstanding sum which is due as installments in advance.
Future payments.
Mm-hmm. This is the sums that the governors have discounted in advance and taken it at ridiculous rates, depriving the monies from maturing and being taken at a time that they ought to have been paid even after their tenure. So that is what I'm saying, that Governor Wike and all the other governors should be able to say, this is how much I have received that is due to my administration during my tenure. This is how much I have, at the rate I have discounted. This is what the state has lost in the course of my discounting to take the money in advance. And when we are talking about inflation and the exchange rate and the loss of value of the naira, these are part of the contributive elements, because when you are entitled to money in the future and you decide to take it now, there is the element of excess, and there is the element that affects the value of the currency, and there is the element that affects inflation. Right. Now, this is what the Governor Wike and the governors of the states should. I have listened to the statement made by the Commissioner of Finance of Delta States. I have listened to the one yesterday by the Governor of Finance, Commissioner of Finance of Akwa Ibom State. They have not been specific and particular they have, with the greatest respect, they have treated the citizens of their state and Nigerians as if we are all illiterates.
Okay, let's stop you there for now. You have more time to speak to that, because some of these developments that we are hearing is unimaginable, in a country where people are still sane and doing things according to the law. Because for you to now take monies that should accrue to you in future now, and you don't spend it properly, it amounts to deceit. Right. You mentioned a lot of things, really. That has to do with the development of the communities where these oil is actually produced. I had an experience sometime when we traveled to Urobo area of Niger Delta area, and I saw some elderly women. None of them was less than 80. Blocked the road, barricaded the road, and they were saying that we will not even pass the road, and we were begging them. They say, look, we should go and talk to government, that they are not benefiting from the oil. And if you look around the area, you just see big pipes, bulging out from the ground, and you see their thatched houses very close to those, so that brings home the fact that the people in those areas are not really taken care of. Now, let me bring in Leo once more, because you have already carried out a research, a very comprehensive research on this. Now, some are saying that some members of the communities where this oil is produced are also conniving with government, for so many reasons, to enrich themselves rather than, of course, their communities. And Santenang was talking about some citizens of the communities being night guards or pipeline guards and all of that. But that could happen in an area where people did not go to school in the first place.
It's not correct. It's not correct. Okay. A lot more, even the civilized were highly educated. Okay. They give you pipeline protection contract.
All right. So, Leo, what's your take on that? Are there connivance between the people of the rural community, some persons in rural communities that produce oil, with government of the states? And from what Santenang said, that these monies are specifically meant for those communities. Is it wrong to utilize such funds to tackle other developmental issues in the state? Because, of course, before the derivation, those other areas have not been neglected by government. So if money comes in their name, it must not necessarily mean that it should be expended on them alone. But let's start from Leo attack on that.
Yeah, thank you, Kiriam. I think that the issues here, some community leaders, no doubt, are complicit in the problem of development of the Niger Delta. There's also issues of connivance, but all of this boil down to issue of corruption, issue of lack of transparency, and issues of accountability. Because if we take away corruption from the system, if we take away, if we ensure transparency, and then we ensure accountability, in a state like Bayelsa, they do not have the interventionist agency. But I do know that they have the Bayelsa expenditure and transparency, whatever. That law in itself, was initiated to disclose to citizens how much that they receive for this 13%, and then how much that is also, how it is being expended. For what was it, where and where were they expended? So the issue of complicity is there from the local people. There's no doubt about that. But again, the management of the 13% is a whole lot of issues around that. For us, as civil society, it is not a bad idea to have something like a commission, like some of the states have done, to take responsibility for the management of the 13%. So it now behoves them to be accountable to the citizens. The citizens on their own also have a... Now, Wike has disclosed that, oh, I give thanks to Mr. President for releasing 13% to us to do our work. Now, having done that, it is now important for citizens to equally other citizens of other states to hold their own governors to account. The money you collected, how have you spent it? And then one way of demonstrating that is the 2023 election that is around the corner. This is the time to hold these people to account. The money you received, what have you done with it? And then the institutions that have been established, for me, it's not a bad idea. It is time also for us to begin to see what kind of reforms can be put in place for these institutions to be strengthened, for them to be able to deliver on their mandates. Because their mandates are clear, they are nice, they are beautiful, on the law. But how are these objectives? How are the objectives? How are they being delivered?
Oh, Leo, it looks like,
for instance. And then to speak to the issue of, should it be only the oil-bearing communities that should benefit from the revenues? I think that the oil communities should benefit. That is what that money is meant for. The oil-producing communities, to develop them, and then to even carry out the environmental, cleanup of the environment. Because our research showed that 13 million crude have been deposited all around the Niger Delta, by way of pollution. And how do you clean up? Even the cleanup that is happening in Ogoni land is not even up to meeting its expected target. So how are we doing that? How are we achieving that? So this is what this money is meant to achieve. But again, most of the people from oil-bearing communities, they also live in the state capitals. They live in the urban centers of the state. So the idea of, let other parts of the state also benefit from the oil revenue, just like other parts of Nigeria are benefiting from the oil revenue. It isn't a bad idea. But what is important is that the goose that lay the golden egg must be preserved, must benefit from the egg that is laying. That is the point that most development actors are actually saying. So it is important that issues of disclosures, for instance, during the Obasanjo administration, there was this disclosure of what was going to all the states. I think it continued up to some point of the Jonathan administration. It would be nice that disclosure that was published widely should continue, because once you have such information, citizens have such information, they will be able to hold those in authority, the governors, to account.
All right. Leo, thanks a lot. You've raised a number of very important points. For instance, transparency and full disclosure, such as Okonjo-Iweala started publishing receipts by the states, and then the various percentages or the various sums derivable from the subheads. I still would like us to come back to the whole issue of dealing with the arrears. And what appears to be, what now you say is discounting, which is the synonym for auction, yes, as you said, Senator Itayanang. In terms of propriety of action, that is to say correctness of action, is this a sole executive responsibility? That is to say, for a state government through the governor or the executive branch to determine, to say, we are expecting 100 billion naira in the next 2 years or in the next 4 years. Because we are pressed for money now, so what we will do, we will rather accept 75 billion and then discount it for 25 billion. if you are expecting money, that I imagine that according to process and procedure, the State House of Assembly should be apprised of what you are expecting. And if you are getting into debt, the state government, through the House of Assembly, also grants you the permission to get into debt. Why does it appear that we are not hearing the voices of the State Houses of Assembly in this matter? Is it part of the emperor syndrome of governors?
The governors are acting worse than emperor. They're acting as pharaohs. The old pharaohs of the Old Testament. They are worse than emperors in their dealing with the people. The governors believe and act as if after them there will no more be governors, and as if there were no governors before them. They're acting as God and the gods, all of them put together, the governors, because they treat the House of Assembly as parastatal. They treat the House of Assembly as if it were part of their domestic kitchen staff, who will bring only water when you need water, and just nothing else. And the Houses of Assembly, because of the domineering influence of the governors, cannot speak. I took an assignment from Mr. President on getting the autonomy of state judiciary and state legislature free. And as Secretary of the Implementation Committee, we did everything to make sure that there is a level of freedom for the judiciary and for the legislature. The governors took us to court, got judgment, and even went back to treat the judiciary worse and the legislature worse. Sometimes I get angry when I hear, like I heard the chairman of the body of benchers commend Governor Wike for what he has done for the judiciary. I'm not one of those who commend Wike for what he has done for the judiciary. I accept myself from it, except for what he has done for the federal judiciary. Because the Constitution says that the money of the judiciary should be given to the judiciary to be spent by the judiciary on the judiciary. The money of the legislature should be given to the legislature to be spent by the legislature on the legislature. But the governor, Wike and other governors, will take the money, go and implement the project, and just take the House of Assembly as security men. I apologize to the legislature, I'm a trustee of the legislature, to just say yes to whatever they want done. And then we'll come out and clap. I don't agree with Olanipekun, the chairman of the body of benchers, when he commended them, except for what he does for the federal judiciary, but for the state judiciary and all others, the chief judges and the judges are treated less than they deserve. So this is the kind of thing that we need a lot more constitutional rearrangement to free the judiciary, so that questions like this, that the Houses of Assembly should be able to ask the questions.
Precisely.
They should be able to ask the questions. When I sent as Secretary of Presidential Implementation on the autonomy of state legislature and state judiciary, when we developed and worked with the Mr. President, and the President issued Executive Order 10, we worked with the Houses of Assembly. The Conference of Speakers were active. The body of chief judges were active, working with me and with the Attorney General of the Federation, the Chairman and the Secretary. The governors threatened these people for even attending the meetings. For even attending the meetings. When we had a meeting in the course of the strikes in the office of with the Chief of Staff, with the Minister of Labor, with the Attorney General, and the Chief Justice of the Federation. And the governors went back, two of them impeached their speakers for attending the meeting at all. So there is something that we need to do to free the economy, because state House of Assembly will be able to speak on this. Mm-hmm. Now, if a governor says, my judiciary, like the Governor Wike confronted me in the banquet hall of the Governor's Lodge in Port Harcourt, as secretary of the implementation committee, when we went for the back conference last year, confronted me personally over it. So you can't involve my judiciary. My judiciary. How? This was me and Wike, Governor Wike, His Excellency, my brother, the lawyer. So we have to think about doing something more. Please let me get to this element of the proper utilization of the money for the development of the oil communities. On the about 9th of October, I developed a memo after engagement with the host communities, most of the host communities in the Niger Delta. And I made a lot of inputs to the development of the Petroleum Industries Act, on this matter. And my input, which I sent to the authorities, and it was referred, I sent to Mr. Excellency, Mr. President, and Mr. President referred it to the Office of the Attorney General. We worked strenuously with the Office of the Attorney General, looking for how to have established constitutionally and compulsorily all mineral producing areas in the respective states, to ensure that the money that comes to the oil producing states in the name of derivation goes to the oil producing communities. And we don't mind that at least 60% should go to the oil producing communities and 40% goes to the oil producing state for the development of other facilities. Like 1% of the federation account has come to the Federal Capital Territory, which we are doing wonders with it. Now, I struggle with that. We didn't quite agree with the Attorney General's office was not quite agreeable with a lot of the modalities. So we had to engage with Engineer Mbang, the chairman of the chairman of Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, and the commissioners. And how do we create a situation where there will be a compulsorily established all mineral producing areas in the respective states, and after establishing, we make sure that the money goes to that commission from the federation account directly. Yes.
Thank you so much for what I've elucidated. As a matter of fact, you started by saying that these governors at the subnational level are just worse than emperors, based on the way they govern these states. As a matter of fact, I keep wondering why we get ourselves into some of these, controversies, unnecessary controversies, I would say, because we have 3 tiers of government and we respect the devolution of power. Now, why don't we extend it to the financial aspect of it? That's just what the matter is. It's a very simple thing. That if you are autonomous, by standards, by the constitution, now you give me my own money to be able to function effectively and efficiently. And by the time the money is shared, but it gets to the governor, it is normal that in the Nigerian way and situation, that those monies will miss the track. All right, then we'll take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation continues. It's a very important conversation, I must tell you, because of course it concerns national development, especially those communities where the oil is coming from. Do stay with us.
All right, you're welcome back, Alex. Still, Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are broadcasting, as always, live from our headquarters studios in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. I want to return to Leo Atakbo, who is Deputy Executive Director of NIJ. He's joining us from our Benin Network Center. Leo, the question I posed to Senator Etta, I would like to also have your response, but tinged with another question, namely, what have you found, for instance, to be the role of the state legislatures in the malfunctioning of the development commission set up for the oil producing states? That's one. And therefore, why they didn't appear to have had a voice or even raised any caution while the executive branch was busy auctioning the credit receipts of the states for purposes and terms not probably disclosed and not probably clear to anyone except perhaps to the executive branch.
Thank you, Kingsley. I think Senator Ita Nang has really dealt with that issue. In most of the states, what seems to be playing out is the fact that the houses of assembly operate as appendage of the executive arm of government. And so in terms of constitutional amendments, we would like to see a situation where there is in terms of revenue allocation, they need to separate, because it is the dependence of the legislative arm of government on the approvals from the executive arm that seem to have welded them together as almost one arm of government. So that in itself brings a huge challenge, when the lawmakers, for instance, want to challenge, the governor. Very often, the lawmakers that attempt it, they burn their fingers, and they really get them really frustrated within the system. So I think it is a constitutional issue. How are resources allocated, between the executive arm of government and the legislature? But on our own part as civil society, we have had cause to also approach, the lawmakers on their own, irrespective of whatever challenges that they have. And a good number of them are also very forthcoming. They are also, in terms of keying into our reform ideas and agendas, on how these things can be done better. But again, it has to be like a teamwork within the legislative arm for it to succeed, at the end of the day. So if maybe a reasonable number of them, they buy into your idea, and the generality or majority, do not buy the idea, of course, again, it could also be a reflection of the thinking of the governor. And the governor must, be in tune, with what the lawmakers want to do at all times before it will see the light of the day. So our recommendation in that regard is that there is the need for that constitutional, amendment. Again, I also share some recommendation from the position of a senator, the distinguished senator, and it fits into the recommendation from our research work, that there is the need for the oil revenue to be transmitted to a commission. Yeah? Yes, some states have already established the commissions. There is the need to strengthen those commissions, instead of perhaps being left to the whims and caprices of Mr. Governor. It will be important that it be like it's established like a trusteeship, that citizens, trusted citizens from oil producing communities, are made to serve as trustees of that commission. And then money should go straight to that commission from the federation account for the management, for the development of the oil-bearing communities. I think that is my humble submission regarding to that.
Thank you indeed. When money is transmitted direct from federal government to a commission in the state, then who supervises the commission? Is the commission under whose purview is the commission going to operate? Transmission of money is one thing. Another is how the money is managed. Who monitors that? That's a question that could be answered. But my main question to you is like a deviation, from the trajectory that we have been on all this while. Now, you are a protagonist of legalizing, artisanal refining. Yeah. What we refer to as illegal refining. Yeah. Which of course has a constituted environmental, challenges, in the Niger Delta area. Of course, recently we had the issue of Niger Delta area, especially Port Harcourt, being engulfed by, haze and what have you. Now, what is the nexus between illegal mining and lack of development in the oil producing communities? Right, because from the experience I had when you had a conference, I was able to speak with one or two persons directly involved in this illegal mining. They come from those oil production areas, and they believe it is their right in the first place. Now, what would be your advice to state governors on engaging those persons, perhaps legalizing their stay by involving federal government at state level, where with respect to this 30% derivation, which they could also use in getting refineries, modular refineries, which of course has been approved by the federal government. Is there any nexus between these two?
No, I don't propagate illegal refining.
But legalizing it.
I propagate artisanal refining and legalizing it. And I want to say that I had said on this program, and of course, I think at the time that we appeared with one of the officers of the civil defense, and we said that when you stop and curb or in any manner restrain the illegal refining, you will have petroleum scarcity. We are having refined petroleum scarcity in Nigeria today because of the flood that has disturbed the locations of these persons and the now higher cost of obtaining it by the processes because of the heightened activities of security agencies. It has not stopped the operations. It has simply raised the cost of operations, and a lot of persons, by the time the floods are over, I think we are going to have a little bit of a relief. I'm not getting into the illegals. Now, the revenue, the development of the oil producing communities would have been better if the governors were applying the funds for the development of the oil producing areas on oil bearing area. There are areas that you have oil bearing, but they are not yet producing because either the well has been capped or it is part of the reserves, but they still suffer the effect. Now, in my recommendation to Mr. President, which was forwarded to the Attorney General, which we've been discussing with the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, we had said that the money should go directly. They should establish like a commission, like what was recommended in 2005 by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission when we were in the House of Representatives and sent to us. And in 2012, it was also recommended, and a bill was made in 2005 and I think 2012 under the Obasanjo and the Jonathan administration for the establishment of a commission that will, and a process that will send the money directly to the oil producing communities by passing the governors and making part of the money under that act to be available to the state government, and the ones for the oil producing communities made directly to the commission at the state level. That was part of the recommendations that I made. So these are issues that need to be addressed. Now for the governors,
who supervises the commission?
It is at the federal level. It is at the federal level.
Under which umbrella? Which
it should be either
ministry or under commission?
No. It should be a commission, or given as part of the recommendations of the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, with the participation of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission and other agencies at that level, to make sure that the money goes down to that level. Some level of responsibility can involve the local government in these areas. And of course, this is more reasonable to be established now because oil has been found and is being explored in the Kolmani Basin. There is one in the Dahomey Basin. There is the other one that we're expecting and that is coming up in the Chad Basin, the Benue Trough, the Bauchi Trough has been done, and so on.
Anambra Basin.
Yes, and the Anambra Basin, and then the Kogi area. Kogi is involved in the Anambra Basin. Now, so it now becomes a national issue. So it's no more the question of the Niger Delta. It is a question of a national thing. Because at that time, in 2005, the Iboris and the governors at that time, descended, and Odilis descended on their members, on us, the members from the Niger Delta, from the oil producing areas, and say if you touch it. And so they breathed down. And the members who thought of their return or some political this thing or survival were cowed. And so if you, the owner of the beneficiary, would not propagate it, then the other southwest, southeast, north central, northeast, and all that, who are always our allies in getting this done, they couldn't cry, they couldn't take Panadol for your headache. You know, so these are the kind of things that should happen so that the money will be available in these areas. But there are refineries at 35, at 70, $100, which could be brought and then established in these areas.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
fine. I'm just wondering, Senator Itaina, some persons will say that what you are describing now is similar to NDDC in a sense. And NDDC, this 13% we're talking about is not the same. It's not the same thing as NDDC. And the results from NDDC are not salutary either. So it leads me to a psychological question. This will be for yourself and Leo Atakpo. Leo Atakpo in our Benin Network Center. Just tell me something. I wouldn't know whether your organization has undertaken any psychological or social surveys in the Niger Delta area, oil producing areas, to try to understand the mentality of those who receive these monies and what they think the monies are meant for and why they behave the way they do, and seeing that the oil producing communities and even the states continue to lag behind in terms of development. We are seeing what Qatar has been doing with oil money. We see what Saudi Arabia, what Kuwait and other locations are doing with oil money. What have you undertaken any survey just to understand the mentality of this person? Is it money that you just come like pounded yam that you must eat it today, otherwise it goes bad tomorrow?
But some of our research findings have also indicated some of those social indicators why people behave the way they behave in the region. I think a whole lot of people, some huge percentage of the people, still believe in this primitive capital accumulation as a way of living, as a way of life. So that informs some of the actions of some of the governors. That's what informs some of the actions of some of the leaders, the heads of some of those institutions. That also informs the actions and inactions of some of the persons who are from leaders of the communities. So it cuts down, down the chain from the political leaders through the representatives of the various, some of the communities. There's that strong, perception, that belief that, once you grab it, then every other person begin to worship you. So there is the need for some psychosocial, changes, some need for our orientation, of people in the area to also be changed, to begin to see oil revenues as a common patrimony of the people that must benefit everybody across the board. So that's, that kind of advocacy is also contained in why we are talking about issues of openness, issues of transparency, issues of accountability. Because again, when people have information, they will be able to perhaps work with the information. They will be able to hold those in authority to account. These past days, since Governor Wike's outburst, a lot of people have been asking questions. People have been asking questions. And then we have been having answers that were not provided before now. The answers have been coming out. And again, more questions from whatever answers we are providing, more questions will also be coming out in the days to come. So I expect that, whatever effort that we are putting, whatever solutions we are putting on ground, it should also contain, development agenda or some kind of a reform agenda that will also help to change our orientation, the way we think, the way we want to even deliver development agenda to our people. All of that really need to change for people to understand that, yes, we just have one life to live. And after now, nobody will live here permanently, because the way people go about, this capital accumulation, it does seem as if they are going to live here forever. your brother is not having access to basic needs of life, food and health, shelter, and then you are, busy, blowing the common resources that is accruing to the generality of the people the way they do. So these are my submission to this, Kingsley.
Well spoken. We used to have all these elements, who have just, of course, changed their course of behavior. Then, the Tompolos, the Asari Dokubos, these are persons who have fought for Niger Delta as militants, and who also come from different oil producing communities. I'm just wondering why they have not taken up their governors, on some of these things we are mentioning. These are leaders of the younger generation of Niger Deltans. I wonder why they're not speaking out, about these governors and what they are doing. For instance, we're talking about Delta State, one of the richest states in this country, and that, of course, from the paper we read this morning, that some retirees, barricaded the road to demanding for their pension, and over 10 years pension. I can't fathom that, that these senior citizens are begging for their pensions at the age that they are. These are persons that should be taken care of by any good government under normal circumstances, not even pension. Okay, provisions are made for such persons. Now these are people who are legitimately now seeking to have their pension, and somebody is not paying that pension, and it's a rich state in this country, and it has 13% derivation that we're talking about. I mean, it's so appalling that this is happening. But these are human beings, women for that matter. All right. Well, Senator Enang, your last final contribution, this morning before we call it a day.
Thank you very much. And let me ask that the citizens of this state should rise up, not in arms, not in protest, but they should ask questions. You can ask and seek answers to this question under the Freedom of Information Act. Just make a disclosure to the request to the House of Assembly, to the Ministry of Finance, to the Debt Management Office, and they are bound to respond to this, so that you can arrest this economic banditry by the governors. Because what the governors have done is banditry against the finances of the states. That's number one. Number two, the governors should know that there will be a tomorrow, and that the immunity you have today is immunity from being prosecuted today and being asked those and answering those questions today. But you are entitled to be asked, but you may not answer those questions today criminally. But immediately after you leave office, 1 minute after that, you will be arrested, tried, and right. And the law will be reversed, because you must account for what you do while in office.
Yes, thank you so much. People forget so easily. Many past governors also suffer the same fate. Some are still in jail and stuff, but nobody wants to listen. Senator Ita Enang, immediate past senior special assistant to the president of Niger Delta Affairs. We appreciate you.
I think I want to say Senator Ita Enang, OFR. It's important. It's very important for me.
OFR.
Yes. Of the Federal Republic.
But we didn't know about it. I mean, you didn't celebrate with us.
You covered the event live, and so you saw when the president conferred that on me.
OFR.
Yes, sir.
All right. Leo Batu, Deputy Executive Director, Africa Network for Environmental and Economic Justice. We thank you for being here with us this morning.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We hope you enjoyed the program. As always, join us again tomorrow for a fresh package. Same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian. Do you have a great day? I'll see you again tomorrow.